OffBeat Sports Podcast.
It's been a tale of two seasons for the Boston Celtics.
I probably aged about 10 years just from that series.
I'd probably compare myself to just a younger, smarter, more handsome, stronger Michael Jordan.
Let's go Celtics. Go Patriots.
These are guys who, when you give them a bowl of Cheerios in the morning, they finish every last drop of milk.
Absolute clown over here.
I'm ready when you are, baby.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the OffBeat Sports Podcast presented by iSlide. Today we are joined by Dan Shaughnessy, the sports columnist and associate editor for the Boston Globe. Thanks for joining us today, Dan.
Nice to be here.
A big part of your career was becoming the beat writer for the Boston Celtics, whom you've covered every day from 1982 to 1986. So what was it like being around legends like Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and what do you think separated the 80s Celtics from other teams?
Yeah, that was a really good opportunity. I wrote a book on that during the pandemic because it was just such unusual access that we had then that no longer exists. Nobody's fault, just doesn't. But in those days, it was really like being a member of the team, practically. We were with them all the time. Hotels, buses, practice, and then travel, just flying. They flew commercial. We were with them. So we really got to know them. We were able to tell the readers what they were like. And that was a great privilege. So I thought, though people still like that team, and you guys are too young to know, but yeah, it was a very colorful team, a lot of outspoken guys. And the whole Bird Magic thing kind of brought the NBA into the next level of interest, which it still enjoys today when they on their way to becoming a global entity. So it was a sweet time for there. So yeah, that was a great privilege to do. And I was like the same age as those guys pretty much. So that helped a little bit. And I knew a lot about them. They were already champs when I came and they won the thing in 81. So there was a lot of interest in that team, very much like now. I mean, they were the top team in town at that time, which is kind of what we have here today.
Yeah, so do you have any special stories that you can recall from that team, like working with those teams, that you'd like to share?
I mean, I shared all of them. There was, just stuff that wouldn't happen today. There's an instance where Bird was playing, he had busted up his hand in an off-court episode during the playoffs in 85, and he was taping it during practice. He had it taped like that. And I was just breaking chops saying, you can't play in a game like that. And he said, I can tape my whole hand and make more shots than you. And then he orchestrated this whole free throw contest where he took 100 free throws, $5 a throw. He had his hand taped like a boxing glove, just pushing off like a shot put. So he took me for $160. And then, of course, he greedily took my money and took his wife out to dinner and never gave me the change back or any of that stuff. Just stuff that would be unusual to have that happen with one of the beat guys and Jason Tatum today, for instance.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so you've been the beat reporter for the Red Sox for a number of years. And looking back on Red Sox history, the 2013 team obviously holds a special place in the hearts of all Bostonians based off of what that team went through. So I was wondering if you could kind of talk to us about how the city and the team were able to rally around each other in the wake of the marathon and able to win the title there in October.
Yeah, that team was kind of a miracle in a lot of ways. And excuse me, the timing of having it come on the heels of the marathon bombing, which is early in the season. That's Patriots Day. So you're only 2 weeks in when that happens. And they had been in last place in 2012. They had the Bobby Valentine clown show year. And so there were low expectations for that crew. And, that was sort of a galvanizing moment for the whole city, certainly for that team. It had a lot of characters. And it just took off. And we didn't think they would sustain it through the playoffs. And it was a really critical moment against the Tigers. Tigers were wagging, and they had Scherzer and Verlander. They were loaded and had a better team than Boston. But they brought in this reliever Benoit in a game 2 of the playoffs, and they had a 1-0 lead. They were up by I think 4 runs in game 2, and then Ortiz hit a game tying grand slam, changed everything. Sox won that game and carried the momentum. Ended up beating them in 6. And then had a more interesting World Series than the first 2 they had. The Cardinals took them 6, and it was the only one they won at home. The other 3 they won in this century. They won in St. Louis, Colorado, LA. But this one they won at Fenway. So it had been 100 years since they'd won one at Fenway. So that was kind of a really cool thing.
Yeah, so kind of going back in time a little bit from that. Prior to working at the Boston Globe, you were the sports editor for the Crusader, which is our Holy Cross school newspaper. So could you kind of talk to us about your experience in this role with the paper and how it prepared you to later write for the Globe?
It was really critical in my career. In those days when you get on campus, I think the student paper, I know it's the Spire now, it was the Crusader then, but they had they must have had a deal with the admissions. So if you had that on your transcript or in your application that you had done high school paper, town paper, they went and found you. So I wasn't planning on it necessarily, and I got a missive in my mailbox, box 1902 at the Hogan Campus Center, and said, "Hey, we're having a meeting, looking for freshmen who want to do this." And I said, "Yeah, I'll go to that. I can take on one activity." And I went to the meeting, and there weren't that many kids interested, which was really advantageous for me. Like at BC, there would have been like 20 guys wanting to do the same thing. At Holy Cross, there just weren't that many. We had a smaller student body and not as many people all geeked up about doing sports as a career. So I went to that meeting and they put me on freshman football. And a year later, when I was a sophomore, the sports editor, I think his girlfriend or wife got pregnant. I don't know, but he had to abdicate. So I became the sports editor of the paper like 5 weeks into sophomore year, which was great, And those days, we were playing Syracuse like you do now, and Army, and the football was still a little higher level in terms of scheduling and prominence than they are now. Didn't have the success you guys have had in recent years, of course, but basketball was really relevant, so the newspapers, the Boston newspapers, which really mattered at the time, they kept track of Holy Cross, they kept track of Providence and Dartmouth and UMass, and they had stringers at the campuses. So being sports editor of the student paper at Holy Cross, I became the Boston Globe stringer for events that they didn't send someone out. So if we were playing St. John's in basketball or Syracuse in football, I could write a story and be in the Globe the next day. Plus they paid. So it was like, it was great. And I was always bothering those guys. Let me work there. Let me work in the summers. I'll do anything, get coffee, the usual. And they did let me come in after my junior year. And that was a very rewarding summer. And then I got to know everybody, and there was a lot of Holy Cross had a lot of juice with the Boston sports media. There was just guys really had an affinity for it, and way more than now. They hardly cover colleges now. They just doesn't really exist. It's much smaller now. So, but so that accelerated my career path. And then after I graduated, they let me come in and do high schools in Massachusetts. And I was with Kevin Dupont, who's we're all in our 70s now. Leslie Visser, and we all had really great careers. But in those days, we were 21 right out of BC and BU and Holy Cross and just starting off. But the Globe was much bigger then than it is now. And, a million papers on Sunday and everybody read it. So if you were doing high schools, people saw your name still, even though it was just high school. So it was a great way to advance the career. And I was very blessed to have gone to Holy Cross and got the instruction I got and the opportunity I had because it was just all the Boston media cared about what was going on with Worcester, with our team.
So switching gears a little bit here, at the 2016 Baseball Hall of Fame induction ceremony in Cooperstown, you were honored with the J.G. Taylor Spink Award by the Baseball Writers Association of America. It's given to sports writers who have contributed a great deal to the game. Obviously, you probably said it in your speech and things like that, or, talked about it, but is there anything you kind of look back on or reflect on, or what does it mean to you kind of overall?
I mean, that was a big deal for me because if you're a baseball writer, there's one of those a year. So there's only like 65 guys who've received that. And, you're on a wall with Roger Angel and Red Smith and real writers, real legends and guys I grew up reading. Damon Runyon's on there. So it was, and you give a speech at the induction and all the Hall of Famers are there. They have to listen to you. It's pretty intimidating to be giving a speech and you got George Brett and, Ken Griffey Jr. and old timers, Juan Marichal, Brooks Robinson, all these Hall of Famers are sitting there and they have to listen to you. That was amazing. It was very intimidating. And, Sandy Koufax tells you a nice job. So it was a great honor. So professionally, that's number one for me. I mean, in terms of, it just doesn't get any better than that. And, people, my grandchildren can go to Cooperstown. I'm sitting, I don't have a plaque like the real players, like the real guys, but I'm on that wall somewhere and it's a great honor and I appreciate you asking.
Yeah, so now we got some kind of few questions for you regarding current Boston sports landscape. Just some opinion questions we'll roll with. So number one, who is that or this one's not exactly current, but who's your favorite athlete you've interviewed or interacted with throughout the years?
Oh man, I mean, there's so many, and we've had so many great players. So our Mount Rushmore, Bobby Orr, Ted Williams, Bill Russell, Tom Brady. I covered all of them. I didn't cover Ted, but I knew Ted late in life for him. And for me, I didn't cover Ted Williams as a player. I was too young. As old as I am, even I didn't see him. But I got to know him, and to have a relationship with Ted Williams, and that's like having a relationship with God in our sports world. I mean, it was just he was bigger than anybody, and so that to me was the most intimidating thing and the greatest honor. But even though you pick up the phone, you can call Larry Bird or stuff like Bobby Orr, stuff like that. So those guys, and they tend to be, not everybody's great to us, and I understand that, and it really is okay if they're not. But I've been very, very fortunate to have covered so many just great players. Even Bill Russell, I got to know him a little bit, and when I saw him as a kid, and he's the greatest winner of all time in America. So we just had extraordinary guys, and they were just guys you grew to like more because we were around them a lot. And yeah, I still I saw Cal Ripken when he was playing high school soccer in Aberdeen. His father was the third base coach for the Orioles, so we thought they were being nice when they drafted him. But turned out he was pretty good. So I saw him ascend the whole way, and now he's an old timer like me.
Yeah, so the Red Sox recently just wrapped up their 2024 season. So we're wondering what your thoughts are regarding the current team and maybe some of their prospects, as well as do you see any connections maybe with the '04 team, almost like an underdog team like they could be seen today?
I don't see a connection to that. The '04 team they were stacked. I mean, they had I mean, their rotation was Pedro Martinez, Kurt Schilling, Derek Lowe, Tim Wakefield, and Bronson Arroyo. Every one of those guys won north of 150 games. I mean, and none of them ever got hurt. So, in the year before, they needed a closer, so they went out and bought the best closer, Keith Folk. They had Manny Ramirez. They had David Ortiz. Jason Varitek was an all-star catcher. Johnny Damon was an all-star center fielder. They were loaded. So, and they were high-priced, and the Red Sox always went and got the best guy. There's nothing. Now they're into dumpster diving, taking your money, making you come out for the Fenway experience. I'm not a fan of what they're doing now. Nothing against the players. The players are giving it their all. I thought that group this year way overachieved. For them to finish 500 was a miracle, in my view, because they just don't have that much. They had three players who were released by the White Sox. I mean, losing his team in the history of baseball, and three of them were, deemed good enough to come to the Red Sox because they were cheap, which is what they do now. So there's some good players there, and the prospects, it looks to me like the one Anthony is really the real deal. You just don't know till they come up. But Meyer, however you say his name, he's been hurt a lot. Anthony, I have little doubt he'll be an all-star. But Kyle Teal, I don't know, and I just haven't seen him. And not every minor leaguer is a prospect. I mean, there's a difference, and people get a little carried away. I don't like them selling the future when they're not paying for the present. I think that's a fool's gold trick with the fans, and I'm not a fan of it. The prices they charge, the market that they're in, they're a big market, and they no longer behave like that, which I'm not a fan of. But that's not the players, that's management, that's ownership.
And
Yeah,
when you hear Sam Kennedy say like things are gonna change, ownership's all in, does that just kind of make you laugh and you're like,
Sure.
I don't see that happening, or do you have to kind of take that at its word?
I love Sam, but until they, if they go out and sign, some top guys, there aren't that many available. I guess Burns is probably the best pitcher out there, but unless they go and back that up by bringing in big money guys that can help them right away, no, it's just blowing smoke, blowing hot air. And Sam, that's his job. Ownership no longer does interviews, so he's just hired to go out there and take the bullets and say nice things to make people feel better. But we're working 5 years on this rebuild, and they haven't. 4 out of 5 not in the playoffs, 3 out of 5 last place, and just a very dull, starless team. And I'm not a fan of that.
So a lot of fans, because of the way the Sox have been playing the last couple of years, especially with the 500 and just non-success, a lot of people just start going at them about selling the team, and they've been referred to by John Henry in an interview as like an asset, which people really didn't like. I guess I just want your opinion on that whole thing with, people wanting them to sell the team and how they are viewed because they were such a great ownership group when they came in and they did
Right.
so much. But now where they've, now the opinion on them is so turned the other way. I guess what do you think about that?
Well, all those things you just said are true, and those are the instincts that I see. And people have a right to feel the way they feel, in my view. And this group won 4 World Series after buying it in 2002, and you never take that away. But as the years go on, that becomes no more relevant than the Yanks talking about, winning the 1927 World Series. It's like, it's great when they did it, but they're no longer doing it. So, we're 6 years out from the last one, in last place 6 times in 12 years. Every other year they're terrible, and I don't see we're not getting the benefits of this rebuild. So until they start behaving like a big market team again, they're suspect in terms of their intentions, and people should be mad at them. I'm sort of down with that reaction because I think that when you're in Boston, they deserve more of an effort. Something pivoted around 2019, and ownership just changed its mind about the way to do this.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of go off of that, I was looking at your article earlier today in the Globe,
Yeah.
kind of about how they were raising the ticket prices, and when the quality on the field has kind of been the same thing for 4 or 5 years, it's
Yeah.
almost not really fair to the fans when you're running the organization like maybe like the Rays or something. When we're in Boston, that's not going to sit well with our fan base.
You're absolutely right, and I thought, as I wrote, would it kill them to just say we're not going to raise anything this year? Nothing will be higher. I mean, what's the difference? That would buy them a lot of goodwill, and for the dollars in the till, I just don't think it's worth it. And I think fans would love to hear that at this point because it's pricey, and they're not getting their money's worth. There's a lot of AAA guys playing every day in the big leagues.
Yeah, and especially like when you look at the Celtics who are spending a crap ton right now,
Yes,
and
they are.
now there's like Wick's dad is trying to get or is making him sell the team
Yeah.
because of all that spending, and you're kind of like you finally had an owner that's willing to throw all their money at the problem and win a championship, and now you have the potential of that being taken away from you. It's just kind of upsetting for the Red Sox as like a Red Sox fan. And now, how long are we going to see these Celtics together? Hopefully for a couple more years. But
When they made the announcement that Fenway Sports Group was possible suitor to buy the Celtics, I don't think I've ever been more upset.
if they bought the Celtics, the city would boycott. It's
I
just
don't
not
think I've
even.
been so upset in my life. And what Dan, you were talking about John Henry, and I think it's kind of funny. Every time he shows his face, he gets booed more than the commissioner at the NFL draft. I mean, at this point, it's tough because they're obviously operating on they make money because it's just the curb appeal of going to a Red Sox game, like the whole idea of it. But
Sure.
at what point do they have to look in the mirror? I mean, he can't even go to a game in public without being like having tomatoes thrown at him. Like I don't know how you kind of like sit with that over a long period of time, unless the money's just so good that he doesn't care anymore.
Yeah, the thing is, FSG, that's the parent company, and they're in the business of acquisitions. They're not in the business of sales. They want one of everything. They have the Pittsburgh Penguins, they have Roush Racing, they have Liverpool in the Premier League. This is what they do, and now they're big time getting into PGA golf. So they want one of everything. I think they'll acquire an NBA team or an NFL team before they sell anything. They're moving in the direction of acquisition. They already have a great baseball asset, which is Fenway Park, and a team that people will go watch, even if you don't try to win. So that's been established. So I see no chance that he will sell the Red Sox ever. And Linda Pizzuti, his wife, is in her mid 40s. They have small children. They're not going anywhere. They're not selling that. And he really doesn't care what I think or you think or whatever. There's been no contrition about that, and I think John thinks it's a false narrative that it really isn't that feeling isn't out there. You get a little bit insulated when you're in the tower all the time. So, but yeah, so I don't have any hopes, but I don't think they're in the mix for the Celtics because the Celtics rent from the Bruins. I don't think John's interested in paying rent, and as you referenced earlier, all the future commitments they have with payroll, which involves a lot of luxury tax threshold. He hates that. I mean, I understand as a businessman, he can't stand it now paying money to the Pirates and teams that he doesn't think are trying. They're pocketing revenue sharing dough. So, yeah, I don't think the NBA, that particular NBA team is for them.
Yeah, so kind of shifting gears towards the Celtics, having covered the Celtics for a while, who would you pick to win in a 7 game series? This year's title team or the '08 team?
That's a good one. I'm not as high on this year's team, the team that won, as everybody else. The competition was lagging, and I wish they had played Denver. I would have felt better. Hey, they beat everybody who was in front of them. That's all you can do. But Denver beat them 2 out of 2 in the regular season, and then they got taken out by the T-Wolves. They got taken out by the Mavericks, so you beat the Mavericks. That's all you can do. But I just think they didn't get pushed in the playoffs, and it was a little artificial. And I don't know. We could get into the stars and the bench and all that with the team, but I think that they're top 10 Celtic team of all time, maybe top 5, but people got them running 2 or 3, and I'm holding off on that. I didn't love them quite as much as everybody else.
So when you look at the Celtics now and going forward with the tax implications, as we talked about, if and when it all kind of splits up, who do you think goes first, and who do you think stays?
You mean in terms of the sale of the team?
I mean like players wise. Like, do you think like
the
who do you
team.
think they move on from first?
Yeah, I mean again, I don't understand when these contracts come up and everything. I mean, Tatum and Brown are locked up. So, and I think Horford will retire in a year or two. We thought he was going to retire last year. So Al's a front runner to be the first to leave, and then Porzingis gets hurt a lot. And I don't think the others' deals aren't as long as Tatum and Brown. But I don't know when you come up again and you get your free agency again. I don't follow the second apron, all that stuff. So yeah, I'd be the wrong guy to be guessing on that. But I mean, Holiday's older, Horford's older, Porzingis is older. They're the logical ones to be bowing out before anything else. And because they re-upped the other guard, Derek
White.
They re-upped Derek White, which was a great acquisition, and he was in danger of leaving after this year, I think. But now they got him locked in. I mean, it's amazing how locked in that team is. I mean, the top 6 guys are locked in. It's pretty good.
So I have a quick follow-up to what you were just talking about with the team. Do you think with the sale that's going on right now, and obviously the current ownership, they've talked about how they want to make it, they want to sell it to someone who's going to continue to try to win at the same level and things like that. Do you think that that's like a true thing that they really follow, or do you think that the Grossbeck, I guess, like family is just looking to kind of maximize what they can? Do you know what I mean? Because it's hard to satisfy both of those things. So at the end of the day, I think especially the dad seems like he's more focused on getting out while his assets high. So I can't imagine that his focus is making sure that the thing he's not a part of anymore is doing great in the future.
Right. I mean, the dad's 90 years old, so he's not really looking long term here. And there's 3 other children besides Wick. And I think that he also doesn't like losing money on a year-to-year basis. He still teaches big-time finance at Stanford. He's a sharp guy, and he's got all the money. He's the one with the money. It's not Wick. So it's going to go the way Irv wants it to go. And I think whoever comes in is going to want their own person to be governor. Wick's not going to be governor of the new Celtics. You don't pay $5 billion and let Wick stay on as governor. That makes no sense. So whoever it is, Jeff Bezos, Steve Pagliuca, down the line, you hope it's Pagliuca, because I think he would continue to run it the way they've been running it. And he's got his own money, and he feels a little bit suppressed over the 22 years. So I think he'd be really a fine successor in this thing. But this is a sale, and it's going to be whoever comes up with the most dough. And if it's him, then it'll be him. But I think that it's the whims of Irv are about getting out from under the luxury tax payments and just cashing in on his capital gains while he's still alive, and he can distribute that to the 4 children.
So continuing on that Celtics trend, who do you think is their biggest threat right now to kind of, repeat or go back to back?
Yeah, I play around with that all the time in my head. I mean, because the West was disappointing, and Dallas added a shooter certainly, and Denver, it feels like Jamal Murray may not be as good as he was. He didn't really give him a lot at the Olympics for Canada there. But in the conference, it's interesting because the Knicks made the blockbuster deal, and Karl Anthony Towns, Randall, they lose some toughness, they get some size. Is Towns soft? What'll happen? Knicks just haven't had good big men since Patrick Ewing, which was a million years ago. So that's fascinating to me. They've had a level of toughness, but they've never matched up well with this Celtic group. They just get spanked every time there's a big game. So we'll see where that goes. The Bucks are on the downslide. I think everybody knows that. Indiana's always tricky. They got to the finals last year. The Sixers, this feels like the last go around. I mean, they bring in Paul George, who's a million years old as well. Embiid's got to be, at some point, it's got to just collapse altogether, but he's still top 5, and if he's playing. Maxi's coming into his prime, and they've added, pieces, Caleb Martin, guys. So I like the Knicks and Philly to push them the most in the conference. And regarding the West, it's the Wild West. It's wide open, and I'm still saying Denver until I see him more.
And last one for you. Do you think the Patriots should be starting Drake May now? Why or why not?
Well, I understand why they don't, and I know the conventional wisdom, and when you watch and Drake, Mayo is. I understand why he's sticking with Brissett because he's so tough, stays in the pocket, takes these amazing hits, and gets up for more, but it's really limited. You're going to lose anyway, and I don't know. It's professional sports. Drake May is. I just don't think he's going to be forever tarnished, damaged. I want to see him play, and I think it's just the fan in me because these games are just unwatchable. It's really a tough watch, and as admirable as Brissett is, it's just tough to watch. So I'm for doing it now. Do it against Houston next week, but I do understand the logic of waiting. But I saw Drew Bledsoe do it. Peyton Manning did it, and they're probably better than Drake May. But we're not going to know till the season. They just say they ruined Mac Jones playing him too soon. So I do get it, and the O-line looks really porous. But it's the fan of me. You're going to lose anyway. Drake May's professional. He knew it. This is the life he chose. He can take it. He's a big fella, and get out there and see what he can do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Dan. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, it's a pleasure to hang out with Holy Cross guys, and good luck with the podcast and everything else. And I hope you're having a good experience up there. It was very, very great place to do what some of you I think want to do and what I wanted to do. It really was very good for that, and I feel very blessed to have had my 4 years in the Hill and alumni 3, Hanselman 2. So tip my hat to those who were there. Take care, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome
Hey,
talking
guys.
to you.
All right, we will see you next time on Offbeat Sports. Thank you.
Call them all, text them.